ImageMichel Barnier, the European Union's chief Brexit negotiator, at the European Parliament in Brussels on Tuesday. CreditCreditFrancisco Seco, Associated Press Brussels. If Britain ever wants an orderly exit from the European Union, it must pass the withdrawal agreement painfully negotiated with the bloc, Michel Barnier, its chief Brexit negotiator, warned on Tuesday. To date, the British Parliament has already rejected the agreement 3 times by margins varying from historic to hefty, though Prime Minister Theresa May is preparing for another shot perhaps on Friday. Even if Britain asks for a long extension to Article 50, Mr. Barnier said, the withdrawal agreement will not be reopened, and negotiations on the country's future relationship with the European Union cannot legally take place until Britain is no longer a member. Britain could also leave without an agreement, which Mr. Barnier said is day after day more likely. He insisted that the European Union was prepared for this scenario. But even then, he said, Britain would have to return to talks with Brussels in a badly strained relationship to manage day-to-day dealings, including air transportation, trade and customs. The bloc could then negotiate a free trade agreement with Britain, as with Japan or Canada, but key issues would still be on the table. Mr. Barnier said, listing protections for citizens' rights, preventing a hard border between Northern Ireland, and Britain's legal and financial obligations to Brussels. It would be much simpler for Parliament, which Monday night could find no majority for the Brexit plan, to pass the legally binding withdrawal agreement, Mr. Barnier said. Then the two sides could immediately begin to negotiate their future relationship, since the non-binding political declaration leaves the door open for a variety of outcomes, and could be easily adjusted to Britain's wishes, if the UK still wants to leave the EU in an orderly manner. This agreement, this treaty, is and will be the only one, Mr. Barnier said. If there is no deal, there is no transition, Mr. Barnier spoke and took questions on Tuesday at the European Policy Centre, a think tank based in Brussels. The mood in Brussels has been somber as the British Parliament has tried and so far failed either to pass the agreement or to find a majority for any alternative. But that agreement, including the so-called Irish backstop, will not change, Mr. Barnier and other European leaders have said. Prime Minister Theresa May of Britain in Parliament in London on Monday. Lawmakers have already rejected her withdrawal agreement 3 times. Credit agents France Press, Getty Images. Some member countries, like France, tend to favor a no-deal Brexit, so the issue does not affect European parliamentary elections at the end of May. Fear is that Brexit will be taken up by Europe's various populist and Eurosceptic parties as another sign of the supposed indifference of Brussels to democratic expression. But others, like Germany, believe that Britain is a crucial neighbor and partner in trade and defense, and argue that it should be given a longer extension. The heads of state and government are to meet in Brussels in an emergency session on April 10, 2 days before the current Brexit deadline, to hear what Britain has decided. To get an extension, Britain must tell the other member states why it wants one, for a general election, another referendum or some other reason that promises a way out of the impasse rather than just allowing more time for bickering and deadlock. But a long extension has political and economic costs for both sides, Mr. Barnier noted, citing uncertainty that is damaging business relationships and investment and the need for the European Union to concentrate on other pressing issues, like migration, economic growth, inequality, refugees and terrorism. Leaders, he said, would have to balance the different costs between no deal, even if by accident, and a long prolongation. The European Union will protect its single market no matter what, Mr. Barnier said, since 500 million people and 22 million businesses depend on it. We will never fragilize or unravel the single market, he said in English. If we fragilize or unravel the single market, we are lost.